Did you say Greek?
I'll just use my teacher voice. Okay, well, my name is Dennis Labonte, and I retired from Utah State University a couple of years ago. And I'd like to say on behalf of the Bartholomew family, wife Gail and son Mike, and their daughters Cindy, Mary Kay, and Sharon, that I'm happy to be here and see Lloyd's deserving name on the Business Ed Hall of Fame. On behalf of the other people who wrote letters for Dr. Bartholomew, and some of you will recall the names, some of you might know these people, but H. Robert Bob Stoker wrote a letter, as did James Calvert Scott and Mariana Larson, who were all faculty members under Lloyd, like myself, at Utah State. And so I want to start off and say some things about Lloyd, and I would be remiss if I didn't have some notes here to just kind of guide me through the process. But Dr. B, as he was so affectionately called by most of his students and colleagues, was a great sports enthusiast, and his first love was baseball, and he was went into the teaching career after he discovered that pitching baseball with the Aberdeen Pheasants in South Dakota, that he wasn't going to be a professional baseball player, and so he went to Northern State Teachers College and became a teacher. And one of his first awards that he got was the Mead Manufacturing Award that was for an outstanding business education student, and that told the story for the rest of his career as he moved on. And as I look around out here, all of you have fond memories of Lloyd. I'm sure most of you had experiences with him, and so what I'm telling you, most of you probably, some of you will already know. Lloyd went by the mantra from the Midwest that you live by the code, which is God, your family, your job, and play. And his idea of play was play anything with sports, but mainly baseball. He wanted to be a professional pitcher, and so I started, when I came to Utah State in 1990, I started an intramural and a town team softball, slow pitch softball team, and the first person that I recruited was Lloyd. Well, he was my boss, so I figured that was a good idea. And he was already in his 60s, and I thought, well, all he has to do is sit the bench and smile a lot, you know. But he wanted to play, as Lloyd was a bulldog, and he was fun to play with, even into his 70s. We had a team, and he played when he was 70 years old. So Lloyd always said that I extended his baseball career. He played in 7 decades. So, something that was very cherished. We always talked about that. You know, one of the things about Lloyd that some of you know is that he truly cared about people, and and what made him very special was he believed in giving people opportunities. And many of us in this room have received opportunities as a result of Lloyd's leadership. He wasn't the leader that was about himself. He was about presenting himself as a service person who would help you become a better person. And that was one of the unique characteristics about Lloyd. And it's one of the things after 12 years that I think that some of us have picked up on about him that we really miss, is that we could count on him to be our leader because he gave us responsibilities to do a better job in whatever we were doing. And he supported many, many things besides just education, like baseball. Some of the awards that Lloyd received, they asked me to mention a few of those. Of course, the Smead Outstanding Student Award in Business Education. But after he graduated from UCLA, he went out and taught junior high in Glendale, California, got his PhD under Larry Erickson at UCLA, and ended up at Utah State University, where in 1979 he became the department head, and that's a long story unto itself. But of course, he had many offices in the state presidency of business, Utah Business Education, Delta Pi Epsilon, which we had a great meeting today, and Lloyd was a president of that. At the Beta Nu chapter, which is now the national chapter, Beta Nu is a national chapter now. And he was at that time it was the WBEA, Western Business Education Association, but under Lloyd's guidance we became the WBITE, which was the Western Business and Information Technology Educators. And some of us were really proud of that name, and we were a little discouraged when the vote came out these last few years and went back to WBEA. But, you know, Lloyd had this whole vision, and Lloyd was such a futurist. That was one of the beautiful things about him, is he could, he had this whole thing about the information systems thing, and I think that that's his true legacy in business education, because now many departments around the country in universities have adopted information technology, information systems, and that was Lloyd's baby. That was what he dreamt about, is having business teacher education with information technology, information systems. And so that was his real legacy, I think, and it continues today in many universities throughout the country. Of course, the notable things that he received, he was president of NBEA. He was the only person that was twice president of NABTE, the Business Teacher Education Association for Institutions, and he was a 2-year president of that, and I always bugged him. I said, well, didn't you get enough after 2 years? And there's a story about that, but he was the president for 2 years. Lloyd always wrote a program of work. You didn't go to Lloyd and just say, I'm going to wing it. He always had a program of work written out, and one of the beautiful things was he didn't know how to put it on a spreadsheet, so when I got to Utah State, I said, well, you got to put that in a spreadsheet, and that's your job. So one of the things I got to do. He received the John Gregg Award, which is the highest award for service and distinction in business education. Just so I don't leave anything here. Oh, he was a consummate believer and a practitioner of a university professor's role in teaching, research, and service. And he believed that every teacher should infuse research into their teaching in some way. And he always encouraged any teacher underneath him to belong to a national organization or a state organization, or what I call the grassroots organization. He was a true believer in the professional organizations at all levels, but to infuse research into your teaching. And he would go out of his way to help anybody go to a conference and present something to colleagues and share that to with other teachers. And he himself practiced that very concept on his sabbaticals. When he was 65 years old, he went out to Thunderbird University in Arizona and studied a class on international business, and brought that back to all of us faculty, how a guy 65 years old could go out and do what the kids were doing out there. But in conclusion, I'll say that Lloyd was my boss for 12 years. He was a big brother to me, and he was my best friend.